The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a deep rumble that echoed through the vast space. Representatives from 12 different alien species sat in their designated sections, their various forms creating a bizarre collection of shapes and colors. The air hummed with tension as translators worked overtime to convert the heated discussions into understandable speech. Admiral Kang Woo-jin stood at the center of the human delegation, his uniform crisp and his face calm despite the chaos around him. He had been chosen to represent Earth because of his steady nerves and sharp mind. Now, as alien voices rose in anger and demand, he wondered if anyone could have been prepared for this moment. The Vorthak representative slammed a scaled fist on his speaking platform, his lizard-like features twisted with contempt as he spoke. The humans have had 50 years to prove they can join civilized society. Instead, they continue to wage wars among themselves and pollute their world. The time for patience has ended. Cool. Crystalline being from the Nexari collective responded with a voice that sounded like wind chimes in a storm. Our collective mind has observed their thoughts for decades. They remain violent and unpredictable. Their minds are chaotic storms that resist all attempts at peaceful integration. Kang Woo-jin wanted to respond, but he knew it would be pointless. The decision had already been made before this meeting began. Earth's fate was sealed by species that had never walked on human soil or understood human hearts. The council chairman, a tall being with gray skin and large black eyes, raised one thin hand for silence. The vote has been concluded. Earth will have 72 hours to surrender all military assets and submit to galactic oversight. If they refuse, pacification protocols will be implemented. The words hit Kang Woo-jin like a physical blow. Pacification protocols meant the complete destruction of Earth's military and the installation of alien governors. Humanity would become slaves in their own world. Far below the Pacific Ocean, in a facility that officially did not exist, Dr. Park Yoon-hai received the transmission from the Galactic Council. She stood in the center of a control room filled with screens and blinking lights. Her team of engineers worked frantically at their stations, making final adjustments to systems that had taken 30 years to build. "How long do we have?" asked her assistant, a young engineer whose hands shook slightly as he typed commands into his console. 72 hours, Park Yoon-hai replied. Her voice was steady, but inside she felt the weight of humanity's future pressing down on her shoulders. "Signal all stations. Operation Revelation begins now." The message went out through hidden channels to secret facilities around the solar system. On Mars, deep underground, massive engines began to warm up. The asteroid belt, automated factories that had been silent for years, suddenly came to life. On the dark side of Earth's moon, weapon systems that existed only in the most classified files began their startup sequences. Captain Lee Dong-ho stood on the bridge of a ship that most of Earth's population had never heard of. The bridge was larger than a football field, with dozens of workstations arranged in perfect order. The main view screen showed the depths of space, but it was empty for now. Soon, that would change. "Status report," he called out to his crew. Lieutenant Commander Kim So-young's voice came from speakers throughout the bridge. She was the ship's artificial intelligence, her voice carefully designed to sound calm and reassuring. "All systems are operating within normal parameters. Engine core is at 98% efficiency. Weapon systems are fully charged. Fighter squadrons are ready for deployment." Lee Dong-ho nodded. He had trained for this moment for 15 years, but he still felt butterflies in his stomach. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. These were Earth's best pilots, engineers, and soldiers. They had been carefully selected and trained in absolute secrecy. Their families thought they worked for mining companies or research stations. The truth was far more important. "Captain," called out the communications officer, "we're receiving final confirmation from Earth Command." "Put it through." President Yoon Jae-sung's face appeared on the main screen. He looked tired, older than his years, but his eyes were determined. "Captain Lee, Admiral Kang has confirmed that peaceful resolution is impossible. The alien fleets are already moving into position around our solar system. In 6 hours, they will begin their attack. Lee Dong-ho straightened in his command chair. We're ready, Mr. President. I know you are. All of you are. The president paused, looking directly into the camera. For 30 years, we've prepared for this day. We've worked in secret, sacrificed, and planned. Now it's time to show the galaxy what humanity can do when we're pushed too far. The communication ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Lee Dong-ho looked around at his crew. Each face showed the same mixture of fear and determination that he felt in his own heart. Above Earth's surface, the alien fleets moved into their attack positions. The Vorthak dreadnoughts were massive, dark ships that looked like metal dragons floating in space. Each one was over 2 miles long and carried enough firepower to destroy a continent. The Nexari vessels were different, made of some crystalline material that seemed to bend light around it. They were smaller but faster, and their weapons could disrupt electronic systems from vast distances. Admiral Kang Woo-jin had been allowed to return to Earth, but only to oversee the surrender. He stood in the command center of the Terran Defense Coalition, watching the alien ships position themselves like vultures around a dying animal. His staff worked quietly at their stations, maintaining the illusion that Earth's military was preparing for a hopeless last stand. Sir, called out the communications officer, the Vorthak Admiral is demanding our surrender. He says if we don't respond in 1 hour, they'll begin bombing our major cities. Kang Woo-jin looked at the display showing Earth's traditional military assets. Outdated fighters, small patrol ships, and orbital defense platforms that were no match for what was coming. To any outside observer, Earth looked defenseless. Send a response, he said calmly. Tell them we need time to consider their terms. Sir, what should I actually tell them? Kang Woo-jin smiled for the first time in days. Tell them exactly that. We need time to consider their terms. In the hidden facility beneath the Pacific, Dr. Park Yoon-hai watched as her life's work finally came together. The massive project had begun 3 decades ago when Earth received its first alien visitors. While the public saw diplomatic meetings and cultural exchanges, a small group of scientists and engineers had been given a different mission. Every piece of alien technology that had accidentally crashed on Earth had been carefully studied. Every diplomatic gift had been analyzed down to the molecular level. Every alien visitor had been secretly scanned and recorded. For 30 years, humanity had been learning while pretending to be primitive. Doctor, called one of her engineers, the quantum field generators are at full power. Spatial distortion is within acceptable parameters. Excellent. Begin final calibrations. The technology they had developed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Humans had taken alien concepts and improved them in ways that no single-minded alien culture could imagine. Where aliens perfected one type of technology over thousands of years, humans combined and modified ideas with a creativity that seemed almost magical. Captain Lee Dong-ho felt the ship vibrate slightly as the massive engines came to full power. Around him, his crew made final preparations. In the fighter bays, thousands of pilots climbed into cockpits of ships that moved faster than anything in the known galaxy. In the engineering sections, power flowed through systems that could bend space itself. Captain, Kim So-young's voice announced, we are ready for emergence. Signal all stations. Prepare for Operation Revelation. Across the solar system, hidden facilities received the signal. On Mars, launch bays that had been disguised as mining equipment opened to reveal sleek warships. In the asteroid belt, automated factories began producing more ships at an impossible rate. Around Jupiter's moons, weapons platforms that had been camouflaged as research stations powered up their targeting systems. The alien fleets waited in their positions, confident in their superiority. The Vorthak Admiral reviewed his battle plans one final time. The attack would begin with long-range bombardment of Earth's military installations. Then his fighters would sweep down to destroy any remaining resistance. Finally, his ground forces would land to establish control. It was a plan he had used successfully on dozens of worlds. The Nexari collective mind touched the thoughts of their ship's crews, coordinating their attack with perfect precision. They would target Earth's communication systems first, cutting off any attempt at organized resistance. Their psychic attacks would then paralyze the human leadership, making surrender inevitable. Both alien forces had detailed intelligence about Earth's military capabilities. They knew about every ship, every weapon, every defense system. Their victory was certain. They had no idea what was coming. President Yoon Jae-sung stood in his office looking out at the night sky above the capital city. Somewhere up there, alien ships were preparing to attack his world. In a few hours, everything would change. Either humanity would take its place among the galactic powers, or Earth would become a conquered world ruled. The Vorthak Admiral stared at his main display screen, his scaled jaw hanging open in disbelief. Where empty space had existed just moments before, a massive human vessel now dominated the view. The ship was enormous, easily 3 times the size of his largest dreadnought, and it had appeared without any warning from his sensors. "How is this possible?" he growled to his bridge crew. "Our instruments showed nothing. No energy signatures, no mass readings. Nothing." His tactical officer, a younger Vorthak with nervous eyes, checked his displays again. "Sir, the ship is reading as solid on all our scans now, but there's something wrong with the energy signatures. The power output is beyond anything in our databases." The Nexari collective mind reeled as thousands of individual consciousness tried to process what they were seeing. Their ships had been monitoring space around Earth with precision that could detect a single piece of metal the size of a coin. Yet this massive vessel had appeared without any advance warning. Fleet Commander Zixtal, speaking for the collective, opened communications with the other alien ships. "This cannot be human technology. They lack the knowledge for such construction. Perhaps it is a deception of some kind." The human on their screens looked calm and confident. Captain Lee Dong-ho had trained for this moment for 15 years, but even he felt amazed by what they had accomplished. The Indomitable was more than just a ship. It was proof that humanity could take alien concepts and improve them beyond recognition. "Your 60 seconds are up," Lee Dong-ho announced. "Withdraw now or face the consequences." The Vorthak Admiral's pride overcame his shock. His people had conquered dozens of worlds. No primitive species was going to intimidate him with one ship, no matter how large it was. "Human, you are outnumbered 50-1. Surrender now and your death will be quick." Lee Dong-ho's expression didn't change. "Commander Park, show them what we think of their threats." Commander Park Sung-min nodded from his tactical station. His fingers moved across controls that had been designed specifically for this moment. "Launching fighters now, Captain." The sides of the Indomitable opened like the petals of a massive flower. From dozens of launch bays, fighters began pouring out into space. But these weren't the small primitive craft the aliens expected. Each fighter was sleek and beautiful, moving with impossible speed and agility. Squadron leader Shin Hye-jin led the first wave, her ship dancing through space in patterns that seemed to ignore basic physics. Her fighter could accelerate, stop, and change direction in ways that should have turned her into liquid inside her cockpit. But human engineering had solved problems that alien science had never even considered. "Gold Squadron, form up on me," she called to her pilots. "Let's show these lizards how humans fly." The alien ships tried to track the incoming fighters, but their targeting systems couldn't keep up. The human craft moved like hummingbirds, darting and weaving through space in 3 dimensions, while alien fighters struggled to follow even simple flight paths. The Vorthak Admiral ordered his fighters to intercept, but the results were embarrassing. His pilots, trained in traditional combat maneuvers, found themselves trying to fight opponents who seemed to break every rule of space combat. Human fighters appeared and disappeared, struck targets from impossible angles, and moved in formations that looked more like an art display than a military attack. "Sir," his tactical officer reported with growing panic, "our fighters can't establish target locks. The human ships are moving too fast and their flight patterns are completely unpredictable." The Nexari tried a different approach. Their crystalline ships fired beams of energy designed to disrupt electronic systems. These weapons had disabled countless enemy vessels over the centuries. The beams struck the human fighters directly, but nothing happened. The ships continued their impossible dance through space as if the attacks had never occurred. Fleet Commander Zixtal felt confusion ripple through the collective mind. Our disruption beams have no effect. How are they shielding their electronics? Dr. Park Yun-hai, watching from her hidden facility beneath Earth's ocean, smiled as she monitored the battle. The aliens were learning the first lesson about human engineering. When humans couldn't match alien technology directly, they found completely different solutions to the same problems. Instead of building better electronic shielding, human engineers had developed organic computing systems that used human brain patterns to process information. The Nexari disruption beams, designed to scramble circuits and processors, were useless against technology that thought like a living mind. Phase 2. Park Yun-hai announced to her team. Show them our defensive capabilities. Back in space, the alien fleets decided to try direct assault. The Vorthak dreadnoughts turned their main weapons toward the Indomitable and fired. Massive energy beams, powerful enough to crack a planet's crust, struck the human ship directly. The aliens waited for the explosions and debris that would prove their superiority. Instead, they watched in horror as their weapons simply vanished. The energy beams struck what looked like empty space around the human ship and disappeared completely. The Indomitable hung in space, undamaged and apparently unaffected by attacks that should have destroyed it instantly. Commander Park Sung-min monitored his defensive systems with satisfaction. Human engineers had studied alien weapons for 30 years and designed shields that didn't just block incoming attacks. The shields absorbed the energy and fed it directly into the ship's power systems. Every alien attack was making the Indomitable stronger. Captain, Park Sung-min reported, their attacks have increased our power reserves by 18%. Shall I return fire? Lee Dong-ho considered the request. He could destroy the entire alien fleet with a single command. But that wasn't the goal. The galaxy needed to learn that humanity was powerful, but they also needed to see that humans fought. With honor and restraint. Disable their lead ships only, he ordered. Minimum force necessary. The Indomitable's weapon systems came online with a sound like distant thunder. From hidden ports along the ship's hull, beams of coherent energy lanced out toward the alien fleet. But these weren't the crude energy weapons that most spacefaring species used. Human technology had found ways to make energy itself more efficient and precise. The beams struck 3 Vorthak dreadnoughts simultaneously. Instead of explosions and destruction, the alien ships simply stopped. Their engines died, their weapons powered down, and their lights went dark. The ships hung in space like dead metal, completely disabled, but with their crews unharmed. The Vorthak admiral found himself commanding a ship that would no longer respond to his orders. Emergency power kept life support running, but everything else was dead. His tactical officer stared at displays that showed impossible readings. Sir, our main systems have been completely shut down, but there's no physical damage. It's as if our ship simply forgot how to work. The truth was even more disturbing. Human weapons didn't destroy enemy systems. They infected them with viruses that turned alien technology against itself. The viruses were designed to disable rather than destroy, proving that humanity could show mercy even in combat. The Nexari collective mind experienced something it had never felt before: fear. Their ships began to retreat, pulling back from an enemy they couldn't understand or predict. The collective that had dominated countless species through mental superiority found itself faced with minds they couldn't read or control. Impossible, Fleet Commander Zixtel whispered through the collective link. Human minds are chaotic and primitive. How are they blocking our psychic attacks? Dr. Jong Hae-young, working from a facility hidden on Earth's moon, monitored the alien mental attacks with interest. For 20 years, she had studied Nexari psychic abilities and developed countermeasures. The solution wasn't to block alien mind control. Instead, human technology had learned to reflect it back at the attackers. Every time the Nexari tried to invade a human mind, they found themselves attacking their own collective consciousness. Their own psychic weapons were turned against them, creating feedback loops that left the entire collective stunned and confused. Admiral Kang Woo-jin watched the battle from Earth's surface, hardly believing what he was seeing. In less than an hour, a single human ship had neutralized an alien fleet that could have conquered Earth easily. But more importantly, they had done it without killing anyone. "Signal Captain Lee," he ordered. "Tell him the secondary fleets are moving in to support the primary attack." High above Earth, sensors detected new ships entering the solar system. More alien vessels, including some from species that hadn't been part of the original attack force, were arriving to support the invasion. The galaxy's major powers had decided that humanity needed to be crushed quickly before word of their technological capabilities could spread. Li Dong-ho received the report calmly. "How many ships are we detecting?" "Over 200, sir," his sensor operator replied. "Multiple species, including some we don't have detailed files on." Kim So-young's voice filled the bridge with its usual calm precision. "Captain, I am detecting quantum disturbances throughout the solar system. The Revelation assets are activating." For 30 years, humanity had prepared for this possibility. The Indomitable was impressive, but it was only the beginning. Hidden throughout the solar system, dozens of... The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in the organization's 1,000-year history. Representatives from dozens of species filled the chamber, their voices creating a cacophony of fear, anger, and confusion. Emergency. Broadcasts from the Sol system had reached every corner of known space, and the implications were terrifying. Council Chairman Veltar called for order, his usually calm demeanor showing cracks of stress. "Representatives, please maintain order. We are here to address the situation involving the human species and their apparent technological capabilities." The Vorthak representative slammed his clawed fist on his speaking platform. "Apparent? There is nothing apparent about it. They humiliated our entire fleet with a single ship. Our dreadnoughts were disabled without taking any damage. Our fighters couldn't even target their vessels." A delegate from the Kethra swarm buzzed angrily. "Our analysis indicates human technology is decades ahead of our most advanced systems. This is impossible. They were primitives just 50 years ago." Dr. Han Ji-woo stood at the human delegation's platform, no longer the pleading representative of a quarantined world. The respect in the chamber was obvious, even if it was mixed with fear. He had requested permission to address the council, and for the first time in 50 years they had immediately granted it. "Honored representatives," Han Ji-woo began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. "You seem confused about how humanity developed such advanced technology. The answer is simple. We learned from you." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber. The Nexari representative spoke for their collective. "Impossible. We shared no technology with your species. The quarantine prevented any such exchange." Han Ji-woo smiled, an expression that somehow managed to be both friendly and predatory. "You shared nothing willingly. But every probe you sent to study us, every diplomatic gift you offered, every piece of equipment that accidentally crashed on our world, we studied all of it." He activated a holographic display that showed detailed technical specifications. The aliens recognized their own technology, but somehow it had been improved beyond recognition. "For 50 years, your species have been inadvertently teaching us. We took your concepts and made them better." Engineer Nam Tae-hyun took over the presentation from his position in the human delegation. The Vorthak energy manipulation systems were elegant, but inefficient. We improved their power output by 400%. Nexari crystalline matrices were beautiful but limited. We learned to grow them in configurations you never imagined. The display showed fusion technology that combined elements from a dozen different alien sciences. Each component had been not just copied but completely reimagined and enhanced. Zeldin temporal mechanics were fascinating, but you only used them for navigation. We found ways to fold space itself. The revelation sent shockwaves through the air. Assembly. The Zeldin delegate, a being of pure energy contained in a mechanical shell, spoke with obvious distress. "Our temporal technology is closely guarded. How did you gain access to it?" "Your diplomatic vessel from 37 years ago," Han Ji-woo replied calmly. "The one that experienced what you called a minor malfunction in Earth's atmosphere. We helped repair it, remember? In exchange for our assistance, you allowed our engineers to study your navigation systems." "That was a humanitarian gesture," the the Zeldan protested. You weren't supposed to learn from it. You never said we couldn't, Nam Tae-hyun pointed out. In fact, your engineers seemed impressed by some of our suggestions for improving the repair process. They didn't realize we were learning from every interaction. Captain Ko Yeon-su's voice came through the communication system from her ship in the Sol system. Council representatives, with your permission, I would like to demonstrate how human innovation differs from traditional alien approaches. Without waiting for permission, she activated a holographic projection that filled the center of the chamber. The display showed the quantum biological processors that powered human ships. The technology looked like a fusion of living tissue and crystalline circuits. Traditional computing uses electronic processes, Ko Yeon-su explained. Alien technology improved on this with quantum processing and crystalline matrices, but humans discovered that our own brain patterns could be used as the basis for computational systems. The implications were staggering. Human technology didn't just copy alien science. It incorporated the creativity and adaptability of human consciousness itself. Dr. Park Yoon-hye continued the explanation from her hidden facility on Earth. Every human brain processes information differently. When we connected this diversity to our computer systems, we created processing power that thinks in ways no single-minded alien culture could match. Our ships don't just calculate solutions, they imagine them. The Nexari collective mind reeled as they finally understood why their psychic attacks had failed. Human technology wasn't just protected against mental intrusion, it actually used mental processes as its foundation. Attacking human computers was like trying to invade an entire planet's worth of consciousness simultaneously. General Yang Kyung-hwan's presentation showed the scope of human preparation. While the galaxy believed we were quarantined primitives, we were building the most advanced military force in known space. Mars became a fortress. Jupiter's moons house manufacturing facilities. Even Earth's moon conceals weapons platforms. The holographic display showed the true extent of human development. What had appeared to be mining operations were actually shipyards. Research stations were weapons platforms. Even civilian installations had dual purposes that had escaped alien notice for decades. Every probe you sent to monitor us provided useful intelligence, Yang Kyung-hwan continued. Every diplomatic visit gave us opportunities to study your technology. Every trade agreement let us acquire materials we needed for our projects. The alien representatives began to understand the magnitude of their mistake. For 50 years, they had treated humanity like primitive children, while providing the very knowledge humans needed to surpass them. The quarantine that was meant to protect the galaxy had instead given humanity time to prepare. Ambassador Bae In-ho stood to address the Council with demands that would have been unthinkable just days before. The Galactic Council has maintained an illegal blockade of Earth for 50 years. You threatened our world with destruction and attempted unprovoked invasion. Humanity demands immediate reparations and full membership in this council. The Vorthak representative's scaled face showed his rage. You dare make demands after humiliating our fleet? The Vorthak Empire has conquered 100 worlds. We will not be intimidated by primitive mammals. Primitive? Bae In-ho's voice carried a dangerous edge. Your empire's border systems went dark 6 hours ago. Would you like to see what happened to them? The holographic display changed to show real-time footage from Vorthak space. Their border fortifications hung dead in space, completely disabled but undamaged. Admiral Ryu Seung-hwan's voice came through the communication system from his flagship, the UES Retribution. This is Admiral Ryu of the Terran Expeditionary Force. We have secured 17 Vorthak military installations without firing a single fatal shot. All personnel are unharmed, but your offensive capabilities have been neutralized. The footage showed human ships moving through Vorthak space like ghosts. They appeared from folded space, disabled entire defense grids with surgical precision, and vanished before any response could be organized. It was a demonstration of technology so advanced that resistance seemed futile. How? The Vorthak representative whispered. Our border systems are light years from Earth. Your ships couldn't possibly travel that distance so quickly. Captain Seo Jun-ho answered from his diplomatic escort vessel. We've been traveling beyond your borders for years. establishing hidden facilities and studying your defensive arrangements. When you threatened Earth, we were already in position. The revelation that human ships had been operating undetected throughout alien space for years sent panic through the Council. If humans could move freely through their territories without being detected, nowhere in the galaxy was safe from their reach. The Nexari Collective attempted one final desperate attack. Their most powerful mind controllers focused their abilities directly on the human representatives, trying to force them into submission. The psychic assault was strong enough to paralyze entire populations. Instead, the attack reflected back at them with amplified force. Dr. Zhang He-young's psionic defense, grid hidden on Earth's moon, had been designed specifically for this possibility. The reflected mental energy struck the Nexari Collective like a tsunami, leaving their shared consciousness stunned and fragmented. For the first time in our existence, the Nexari representative whispered, "We have experienced fear." Fleet Captain and Sojin's humanitarian vessels arrived at newly liberated colonies throughout alien space. Her ships appeared without warning at worlds that had suffered under galactic oppression for centuries. But instead of conquest, they brought freedom. "This is Captain Anne of the Terran Liberation Fleet," her message broadcast to dozens of worlds simultaneously. "Your former oppressors have been neutralized. You are now under the protection of the Terran Commonwealth. Any species or government that threatens you will answer." The emergency broadcast reached every corner of known space within hours. What had started as a routine invasion of a primitive world had become the most significant event in galactic history. On thousands of worlds, beings gathered around communication, screens to watch footage that seemed impossible. The Vorthak Empire's capital world buzzed with panic as news of their border defeats spread. High Command had been built on the principle of military superiority, and their entire power structure was crumbling. General Krextal, Supreme Commander of all Vorthak forces, stared at tactical displays that showed 17 defensive installations disabled without a single human casualty. "How many ships did they use?" he demanded of his intelligence staff. "3, sir," came the trembling reply. 3 human vessels neutralized our entire border defense grid. The numbers were impossible to accept. The Vorthak Empire controlled hundreds of star systems through military might. Their border defenses alone included over 2,000 combat vessels and 50 orbital weapons platforms. Yet 3 human ships had moved through their territory like ghosts, striking targets with surgical precision before vanishing without a trace. On the Nexari homeworld, the collective consciousness struggled to process what had happened to them. For the first time in their species' history, their shared mind had been attacked by an outside force. The psychic feedback from Dr. Zhang He-young's defense systems had left millions of Nexari temporarily unable to connect to their collective network, Elder Mind. Xanthara spoke for the confused collective. "We have touched every sentient mind in the galaxy for 1,000 years, but human consciousness is different. It resists our influence and reflects our power back at us. They have made their thoughts into weapons." The truth was even more disturbing than the Nexari realized. Human technology hadn't just protected against their psychic attacks, it had learned from them. Every probe the Nexari had sent into human minds over the decades had been carefully studied and reverse-engineered. Now Earth possessed psychic technology that was more advanced than anything the Nexari had developed. Ambassador Bei Inho stood before the reformed Galactic Council, but the chamber looked very different than it had just days before. Many species had sent new representatives, often younger members who were more willing to accept change. The old guard that had maintained galactic oppression for centuries was being replaced by leaders who understood that cooperation was now their only option. For survival, the Terran Commonwealth's demands are simple, Bei Inho announced. First, immediate cessation of all hostile actions against any world under our protection. Second, reparations for 50 years of illegal quarantine. Third, full recognition of human territory and sovereignty. Fourth, acceptance of the Universal Rights Charter. The Universal Rights Charter was perhaps the most revolutionary document in galactic history. It declared that all sentient beings possessed inherent rights, regardless of their species, technology level, or political system. The concept was so foreign to traditional galactic thinking that many species struggled to understand its implications. The Vorthak representative, a younger officer who had replaced the disgraced admiral, raised objections. The Empire cannot accept limitations on our sovereignty. We have ruled our territory for over 1,000 years. Your territory? Bei Inho's voice carried a dangerous edge. Tell me, Representative, how many of your worlds are currently experiencing rebellions? The question struck home. Across Vorthak space, enslaved populations had risen up when they learned that human protection was available. Worlds that had been oppressed for centuries suddenly saw hope for freedom. The Empire's response had been to send military forces to crush the rebellions, but those forces had encountered human vessels that made resistance impossible. Admiral Ryu Seung-hwan's fleet had positioned itself between Vorthak military forces and rebelling populations. The message was clear. Anyone who attacked civilians would face human retaliation. Several Vorthak commanders had tried to test human resolve and found their ships disabled before they could fire a single shot. 18 systems have declared independence from the Empire, the Vorthak representative admitted reluctantly, but they are our lawful territory. Not anymore. Captain Seo Junho's voice came through the communication system. The Terran Commonwealth recognizes the independence of any world that chooses freedom over oppression. Your former colonies are now under our protection. The footage that accompanied his words showed human ships arriving at liberated worlds. But instead of conquest, the humans brought aid. Medical supplies that could cure diseases the galaxy thought incurable. Technology that could rebuild entire civilizations in months rather than years. Most importantly, they brought the promise that oppression would never return. Fleet Captain In Sojin's humanitarian operations had become the model for human intervention throughout the galaxy. Her ships appeared wherever suffering existed, offering help without demanding payment or submission. The contrast with traditional galactic powers was stark and impossible to ignore. This is Captain Anne to the people of Vorthak Colony 7, her recorded message played for the Council. Your former oppressors have been neutralized. Medical supplies and construction equipment are being delivered now. You are free to determine your own government and future. The Terran Commonwealth will guarantee your independence for as long as you desire our protection. The broadcasts from liberated worlds showed populations celebrating in ways the galaxy had never seen. Beings who had lived under alien domination for generations were experiencing freedom for the first time. Children played in streets that had known only martial law. Artists created works that had been forbidden under imperial rule. The Nexari collective, still reeling from their psychic defeat, attempted to negotiate. The collective offers to share our advanced mental technologies in exchange for peace with humanity. Dr. Zhang Haiyang's response came from her lunar facility. We appreciate the offer, but we've already surpassed your psychic technology. However, we're willing to teach you how to use your abilities in ways that don't involve controlling other minds. The offer was revolutionary. Instead of hoarding superior technology, humans were willing to share it freely. The only condition was that it be used for cooperation rather than domination. The concept was so foreign to galactic thinking that many species couldn't comprehend it. General Yang Kyung-hwan revealed the true scope of human defensive preparations. For 30 years, we've been building not just ships and weapons, but entire manufacturing systems that can be reproduced anywhere in the galaxy. Any world that joins the Commonwealth receives the technology to defend itself. The strategic implications were staggering. Traditional galactic powers maintained control by limiting access to advanced weapons and technology. But humans were offering to give their most advanced systems to anyone willing to embrace their principles. Within years, hundreds of worlds could possess technology that rivaled the greatest galactic empires. Dr. Lim Haewan's exploration missions beyond the galactic rim were discovering new species almost daily. Each contact followed the same pattern: respectful approach, offer of cooperation, and invitation to join the growing Commonwealth. The humans weren't interested in conquest or conversion. They simply offered better alternatives to traditional galactic civilization. We've made contact with the Velkari Collective, the Jendar Republic, and the Infinite Reaches Coalition. she reported to the Council. All 3 species have technologies that complement human innovations. They've agreed to establish diplomatic relations and consider Commonwealth membership. The news that humans were making contact with species beyond the known galaxy sent panic through the traditional powers. For thousands of years, they had believed their region of space contained all significant civilizations. The discovery that an entire universe of potential allies existed beyond their reach was terrifying. President Lee Soo-jin addressed the galaxy directly through broadcasts that reached every inhabited world. The age of empires built on oppression is ending. We offer a different path: cooperation instead of conquest, freedom instead of slavery, hope instead of despair. Her words were translated into thousands of languages and broadcast on frequencies that penetrated even the most heavily censored systems. On worlds throughout the galaxy, populations that had never heard alternatives to imperial rule suddenly learned that other options existed. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Dozens of worlds formally requested Commonwealth membership. Hundreds more began sending diplomatic missions to Earth. Revolutionary movements sprang up on planets that had been stable for centuries as populations demanded the rights and freedoms they saw humans offering. Admiral Kim Young-sik's technology integration programs were producing results that amazed even human scientists. When human creativity combined with alien knowledge, the innovations surpassed anything either could achieve alone. Fusion power systems that were 90% more efficient than previous designs. Faster than light travel that could cross the galaxy in weeks rather than years. Medical technology that could regenerate entire organs in hours. The key is cooperation, he explained to a joint scientific conference. Every species contributes their unique perspective to solve probably. 6 months had passed since the Indomitable first appeared in Earth's skies, and the galaxy was transformed beyond recognition. The old Galactic Council chambers had been rebuilt to accommodate representatives from over 300 worlds, most of them new members of the expanding Terran Commonwealth. The architecture itself reflected the change. Instead of segregated sections for different species, the new design encouraged interaction and cooperation. President Lee Soo-jin stood at the center of the Great Assembly, addressing leaders from across known space. Around her, beings that had been enemies just months before now worked together on projects that would have been impossible under the old system. The sight still amazed her, even after witnessing the transformation daily. 6 months ago, many of you came here planning to destroy Earth, she began, her words translated into hundreds of languages simultaneously. Today, we gather to plan expeditions beyond our galaxy to seek new friends among the stars. This transformation shows what cooperation can accomplish. The changes had been remarkable in their speed and scope. The Vorthak Empire, once a symbol of military dominance, had voluntarily dissolved itself and asked to join the Commonwealth as individual worlds. Former Emperor Krextal now served as a security advisor, using his knowledge of military tactics to help design defensive systems for newly liberated worlds. The Empire's way of thinking was wrong, he admitted during his testimony to the Truth and Reconciliation Committee. We believed strength came from conquest and fear, but watching human methods we learned that true strength comes from cooperation and trust. Admiral Kim Young-sik's integration programs had produced technological marvels that surpassed even optimistic projections. The combination of human creativity with centuries of alien knowledge had created innovations that seemed almost magical, faster than light travel that could cross the galaxy in days. Medical technology that could cure diseases by rewriting genetic code in real time. Construction systems that could build entire cities from raw materials in hours. The secret is diversity, he explained to a gathering of scientific leaders from dozens of species. Every culture approaches problems differently. When we combine these different perspectives, we find solutions that none of us could discover alone. The Commonwealth's first major joint project was already underway. Dr. Lim Hae-won led a massive expedition beyond the galactic rim, searching for new civilizations with a fleet that included representatives from every member species. The expedition ships themselves were marvels of cooperative engineering, combining the best technologies from hundreds of worlds. This is Dr. Lim to Commonwealth Command. Her report reached across space with transmission technology that made real-time communication possible across galactic distances. We've made contact with the Ethereal Confederacy, a group of energy-based beings who exist in what we would consider empty space. They've been watching our galaxy for millennia and are fascinated by our cooperative approach to civilization. The discovery of civilizations beyond their galaxy had profound implications. The old powers had believed they represented the peak of galactic development. Learning that entire confederations of advanced beings existed beyond their reach forced them to reconsider their place in the universe. The Nexari Collective had undergone perhaps the most dramatic transformation. Dr. Zhong Haiyang's work with their collective consciousness had revealed possibilities they had never imagined. Instead of using their mental abilities to control others, they learned to enhance cooperation and understanding between different species. The collective experience is more beautiful when it includes diversity, explained Eldermind Zenthera, who now served as the Commonwealth's Director of Telepathic Communications. We spent millennia forcing uniform thought, but watching human minds taught us that different perspectives make the collective stronger. Chief Justice Park Min-young's legal system had become the model for interspecies justice throughout the galaxy. The courts handled everything from trade disputes to war crimes, always with the principle that all sentient beings deserved equal treatment under the law. Today, we conclude the case of the Krexnal Syndicate trafficking operations, she announced, from the Supreme Court of Galactic Justice. The evidence shows systematic abuse of sentient beings across 47 systems over 2 centuries. The court orders the dissolution of the syndicate and the establishment of rehabilitation programs for both victims and perpetrators. The syndicate's leaders had expected execution or imprisonment. Instead, they found themselves in rehabilitation, programs designed to help them understand the consequences of their actions and develop empathy for their victims. The approach was revolutionary, justice focused on healing rather than punishment. Captain Odong Wook's exploration missions had become legendary throughout the galaxy. His ship, the UES Horizon, pushed deeper into uncharted space with each mission, always returning with news of new discoveries and potential allies. The crew's diversity had become its greatest asset, allowing them to communicate with species that might have been hostile to any single culture expedition. This is Captain O reporting from the Perseus arm, his latest transmission announced. We've encountered a machine intelligence that has been dormant for 10,000 years. It was created by a species that destroyed itself through warfare. When it learned about the Commonwealth's principles, it asked to join us as our first artificial member. The integration of artificial intelligence into the Commonwealth raised new questions about the nature of sentience and rights. The machine intelligence, which called itself Constructor, had capabilities that complemented biological thinking in ways no one had anticipated. Fleet Captain Un So Jin's humanitarian operations had evolved into something unprecedented in galactic history. Her fleets didn't just respond to crises, they worked to prevent them by addressing the underlying causes of conflict and suffering. This is Captain Ann to Commonwealth Command, she reported from a former war zone. The Trilaxian-Mordani conflict has been resolved through resource-sharing agreements. Both species now have access to the rare minerals they were fighting over, thanks to Constructor's mining technology. They've requested joint Commonwealth membership. The transformation of the Trilaxian-Mordani conflict was typical of Commonwealth methods. Instead of forcing peace through military intervention, human diplomats identified the real causes of the conflict and found solutions that benefited everyone involved. The approach required more time and effort than traditional methods, but the results were permanent. Admiral Ryu Seung-hwan commanded the Commonwealth Defense Force, a military organization unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Instead of conquest and intimidation, their mission was purely defensive. They protected member worlds and enforced Commonwealth law, but they never initiated aggression. Defense Force command to all units. His orders went out to fleets stationed throughout Commonwealth space. Refugee ships from the Kethran Civil War are approaching Sector 7. All units are to provide escort and assistance. Remember, our strength protects those who cannot protect themselves. The Kethran Civil War had been raging for decades before the Commonwealth offered mediation. Within weeks of human involvement, The conflict was resolved through negotiations that addressed the concerns of all parties. The former enemies now worked together to rebuild their shattered worlds. General Yang Kyung-hwan oversaw the Commonwealth's defensive infrastructure, a network of automated systems that made aggression against member worlds virtually impossible. But more importantly, the technology was shared freely with any world that requested protection. Security is a right, not a privilege, he explained to a conference of military leaders. Every world deserves protection from aggression, regardless of their size or technological level. The Commonwealth guarantees that protection to anyone who embraces our principles. The old galactic powers had maintained control by limiting access to defensive technology. But Commonwealth policy ensured that even the smallest colony world possessed defenses that could resist invasion by traditional military forces. Dr. Han Ji-woo led research teams that included scientists from dozens of species working on projects that would benefit the entire galaxy. Their latest breakthrough was technology that could restore dead worlds to habitability in just months. "We've successfully revived the Zelixian homeworld," he announced to the Galactic Science Council. The planet was rendered uninhabitable by industrial pollution 800 years ago. Using combined terraforming techniques from 17 different species, we've restored its ecosystem and atmosphere. The Zelixian people can go home. The restoration of dead worlds had profound implications. Many species had been forced to leave their homeworlds due to environmental disasters or warfare. The ability to heal planetary damage meant that displaced populations could return to their ancestral homes. Engineer Nam Tae-hyun's manufacturing systems had revolutionized galactic industry. Instead of centralized production that required vast supply chains, Commonwealth technology allowed any world to produce anything it needed from local materials. Scarcity is a choice, not a natural law, he explained to economic leaders from across the galaxy. With proper technology, any planet can produce enough food, shelter, and goods